This video is brought to you by G2A.com. Check out the link in the description for cheap games. Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefront Updates. Today I wanted to give you guys my initial review and first impression of the Force Awakens. I'm recording this on the 16th, the same day as I watched the movie, as I'd like to get all my first impressions and feelings captured in the video, even though you'll most likely watch this at a later date when the movie is released in more countries. I want to warn you that this video will contain massive spoilers, because I don't feel like I can make a proper review without actually talking about what happens in the movie. So if you haven't watched it yet and don't want to spoil anything, please click away right now. Just make sure to come back and watch this video after you've seen the movie, as I'd love to discuss it in the comments below. So now to my initial thoughts and review. After coming out of the cinema, I sort of had mixed feelings. There was a lot of great stuff in there, but I also felt some sort of confusion about some things that bothered me, which I had hoped would be different. Let's start off with the stuff I really thought was good. It was such an amazing experience getting to see a new Star Wars movie where you don't know what will happen. That might sound a bit weird, but for someone like me who can't really remember the first time I saw Star Wars, I've always grown up with the feeling of knowing what exactly will happen in the movies, since I've watched them so many times. But this time it was such an epic experience to actually get to see a new Star Wars movie with an open mind. That's something that will be very hard to beat. The visuals were perfect in my opinion. It had the whole practical effect original trilogy feeling, but still kept all the effects at a really high quality and not making it look bad like some of the effects in the old movies did. Which is understandable though, considering their age. I also thought the acting was fantastic, and all the new characters portrayed, especially Finn and Rey, was just as I hoped they would be, if not better. In terms of the actual story and content of The Force Awakens, I really liked seeing all of the old characters, and also the references to the old movies. Just to give you some examples of this, I really loved the way they portrayed Chewbacca in The Force Awakens. He showed a lot more feelings in this movie, and they made his talk a bit more understandable for the audience, since they changed the tone a lot depending on the situation. And at multiple times the audience laughed when Chewie said something, simply because we could pretty much figure out exactly what he was saying due to the situation. Han is another example of a great character. I loved the whole story arc with him splitting up from Leia due to their son falling to the dark side and so on. It was just such a heartbreaking moment to see him die though. It's a character you really thought would live on forever. The moment he stepped onto that bridge, I knew he was doomed, but my heart still stopped for a second when he got pierced by his own son's lightsaber. It's the sort of thing that really makes me sad, but for the story it made sense, so it's not something I'm gonna complain about. Other references I really enjoyed in the movie was when Kylo Ren, or General Fox, I can't really remember, and sort of threatened that the Supreme Leader Snoke would create a clone army instead, in response to Finn turning his back on the First Order and causing them a lot of problems. Another thing I really loved was the humor in the movie. It was not too much to become cheesy, like with Jar Jar stepping in shit, but it was something I really enjoyed. Seeing BB-8's little thumbs up with Finn was just hilarious, and the whole cinema laughed. There's just so much stuff to talk about that I really loved about the movie, but I want to talk a little bit about the things that really annoyed me that I think they could have done differently. First off, we have the amount of stuff they copied from A New Hope. It's great that they're trying to pay homage to one of the best Star Wars movies out there, but I felt like they took it a bit too far sometimes. I mean, creating a third super weapon capable of destroying planets, just bigger and better than before, couldn't they have come up with something else? Another clear thing is the whole thing about having a super important small item that the first half of the movie is all about, that everyone wants to find. And it's just like in episode 4, stashed away into a droid that finds its way to a random person who happens to be force sensitive. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's all bad, but I felt like they could have come up with some new stuff for some parts of the movie. I think if you've seen the movie you know exactly what I'm talking about. It felt like they were playing it very safe. The next thing I didn't like was the questionable storyline at some points. One question that a lot of people asked after seeing Anakin's lightsaber was, how the hell did they retrieve that lightsaber from the core of Bespin, or wherever it ended up? And then in The Force Awakens, it's all of a sudden just laying in an open room in the basement of Maz Kanata's bar. And when Han actually asked about how she found it, she just says it's a long story for another time, which kind of pissed me off, to be honest, like they just skipped over a big plot hole. We might get that explained in the future movies if we're lucky, but otherwise I think that's pretty poor writing. Another thing that really disturbed me, that could actually be the thing that annoyed me the most, is what the actual hell has the Resistance been doing for the last 30 years? After the destruction of the second Death Star, they pretty much wiped out the majority of the Empire and should not have any issue building up a lot bigger army and actually establishing a good system in the galaxy. But in the movie we get the impression that they, after 30 years, are still this gang of unorganized rebels that has barely any resources at all. Like seriously, they sent in 15 X-Wings against a planet-sized weapon that can blow up multiple planets at once. That's even a lot smaller army than they had in episode 6. That sort of goes into my next issue. What the hell is the Republic doing? I was under the impression that it was rebuilt during this time and had some sort of huge fleet. But that is just very briefly touched upon, and then the New Order just blows them up like nothing happened, and we seem to be back to square one with just a small gang of rebels with no real army. I don't quite understand why the Republic and the Resistance are two separate entities. I know that the Republic might be doing more political things, but shouldn't they be working together, or that Leia would be the leader of something bigger than just the Resistance? I had really thought that the good guys would be in the upper hand in this movie and that they would have a larger army by now. I had hoped for some bigger fights like in episode 2 and 3, maybe not at that scale, but at least bigger than 15 X-Wings, which is a lot smaller than the Battle of Endor, considering that they've had 30 years to rebuild. The last thing I want to bring up is Rey's force powers. Like what? She became as powerful as Kylo Ren, a Sith/Jedi that has trained for years in a matter of hours. First off, she makes that guard release her, which I thought was a joke at first. I mean, she hasn't had anyone teach her anything at all about the Force, so how can she do all these things? Then we get to the actual battle where she beats the crap out of Kylo Ren, the first time she ever touches a lightsaber. That just doesn't make sense. I know that Kylo Ren was a bit hurt from Chewbacca's shot, but still, she basically learned more in a matter of hours than Luke did for years. I know that the whole Republic thing and Rey's force powers might be something I've just misunderstood that we might get some more clarification on in the future movies. It might sound like I'm very negative towards the new movie, but in fact I'm not. As an initial score, I think I'll give it an 8 out of 10, but I think after I start to learn more about the backstory, rewatch it a couple of times, and see the other two movies that might explain more, I will start to like it even more. Because the biggest reason it's not getting a 9 or 10 from me is the lacking storyline in some parts of the movie, as I explained. Not the actors, effects or something like that, but just the story and plot holes. In the end, this is a movie I'm so glad they made, and I cannot wait to see the future movies. Hopefully they will be even better. Anyways, that brings my sort of unstructured first impression review to an end. I'm guessing that if you're watching this right now, you have seen the movie yourself, so please let me know in the comments below about your thoughts on the movie and on my review as well. I'll try to respond as many of the comments as possible. Make sure to subscribe for more Star Wars content. I will see you guys soon again, and as always, may the Force be with you.